Now, all of this is against a backdrop of reinsurance. And let me explain that a little bit. Let's say that you're a county. In the state of Arizona, the elderly physically disabled waiver programs are managed by the county. So the county gets a capitation amount from the state. They pay the provider's fee for service. If you're a county, then you probably have a small risk base relative to the state. Maricopa County is the largest county in Arizona. It's the size of all the other counties combined. I was the business administration officer for the Maricopa County before I went to state. And I think at the time we had, I want to say, 12,000 enrollees. Not a real big population. So we were capitated at that time $2,400 per member month. And we negotiated a reinsurance clause that Access, which is the Medicaid agency in the state of Arizona, Arizona Healthcare Cost Containment System, which is Medicaid, they stopped our loss. They were our insurance company, our reinsurance company. We negotiated a stop loss with them for long-term care at $20,000. What that means is at any time, can anyone explain what that means? What is that? What happens at $20,002? Who's paying the $2? The reinsurance agency. Yeah, that's what that means. So that any time a client hit $20,000, they would deduct the $2,400 member month payment, which they'd already paid, and then pay fee for service anything over that. So I was only at risk for $17,600, right? Well, at 12,000 people, I could handle that. But if this reinsurance threshold went to $100,000, then all of a sudden the county's bearing some risk that we may not be able to come forward with. Does that make sense? So anytime you look at it, you can't look at it without looking towards that reinsurance clause, because the reinsurance clause can make something possible when it might not seem possible otherwise. Now, there's one other concept, and again, I'm moving really fast, so if you all slow me down if you want me to slow down. If you lower this 20,000, if I say no, we don't have 12,000 people, we have 100 people, just 100. So $20,000 as a stop loss is too high for us. We don't have enough low-end users to offset it. We want that lower. Let's say we lower it all the way to $2,500 as the threshold. All we've done is created a fee-for-service system with a $2,400 floor. Yes, sir?
How often do you renegotiate your reinsurance?
Once a year.
You do that once a year as well.
Now, what happened in Arizona back in I want to say 97, was Medicaid said, we're not going to reinsure the long-term care population at all. We're not going to offer you any reinsurance. So we scrambled over to the governor's office and said, what do we do now? You know, are you going to self-insure us, or do we have to go buy it, or what? We couldn't operate without it. But the federal government said, we're not going to be your reinsurance agency anymore. But they did say that on the acute care side, because remember the 1115C waivers pick up acute and long-term care. On the acute care side, they let us keep the $100,000 reinsurance threshold, because in a hospital situation, you can hit $100,000 pretty easily. So I want to stop and see how comfortable you are with these concepts so far. So to kind of recap where we've gone so far, and now we're going to move a little bit more in detail in standard fees and how they work relative to a capitation. But the idea so far is that when they say it's a risk-based environment, which is a managed care environment using a funding system called a capitation, what's being managed is the possibility of a really expensive person by offsetting them against a lot of less expensive people. That's the risk they're talking about. And you can't, when you want to analyze that risk for yourself, you want to analyze the horizontal risk aspects, which are the size of the base. No, I'm sorry. It's the range of need, whether there's a disparity of need from the high end to the low end. Because if there isn't, there aren't going to be any low end users. They're all going to be the same.